Okay, hi, I'm Eric Sanchez,
And I'm Chris Reed.
and today what we're going to be talking about is YouTube Music, and basically the litigation that's come out across it. So, I mean, if you don't know what YouTube is, how'd you find this video? First off, so, I mean, Chris, in your own words, what would you think YouTube is, if you had to define it?
I mean, YouTube's just a site where any person can create a profile, post videos, watch videos, and yeah, it's just a video hosting website.
Yeah, I definitely feel the same way. I definitely feel like YouTube has become the big, like, repository for all these types of, like, music videos, highlight clips, I guess you can say, from in terms of sports, just the world's DVR really. And the topic we're talking about today is YouTube Music. And in terms of that, Chris, what do you think? What do you think YouTube has done for the music industry?
I think it depends. I mean, for the independent artist, I think it's really good. For artists on record labels, I think it's pretty bad. But for YouTube, I think they make a lot of profit out of it, and we'll discuss that later. But for the artists in general, um, well, let's talk about in terms of independent artists. They can post their videos for free on YouTube, you know, accumulate a lot of views, and that can turn into profit um, based on advertisements that can be played on it and things like that. But in terms of like record labels and artists on those, I mean, it's quite different.
Yeah. Now you said independent artists. Now, when you talk about independent artists, I myself in my paper I drew a sort of dividing line between independent and the YouTube artist. What I wrote is that an independent artist is mostly an artist who just doesn't have the record label power, the money to kind of find a backer for their music, and so they kind of just perform in like their small area, and then through the use of YouTube, they just kind of try to like propagate through that. What I defined as a YouTube artist, more or less, is just an artist who more or less just kind of performs their music, I guess, in their room or in whatever venue they can actually find, but they try to propagate it mainly through YouTube, and they try to communicate and they try to garner fans through YouTube. So, I mean, what do you think about that?
I think that's a good point. I think YouTube itself is turning into a venue. Usually, artists go to a concert hall, and that's where they perform. But YouTube is not a concert hall, so um, yeah, it's just a new medium for artists to display their work, and it has upsides and downsides. But in
Okay.
general, it's good.
In terms of the YouTube music, Chris and I have been talking about how most artists get to profit off of it. So, I mean, Chris, what do you think about YouTube profits? I mean, let me just give a brief outline. The way it works, as we've said, through YouTube, you can make a channel, you can make your own account, and through that, you can post videos, post various other things. The way it works is through these certain number of views you get. After you reach a certain threshold, I believe, in a certain number of videos, if you garner a certain enough amount of views, you actually get some advertisement put into your videos. The advertisement revenue, I mean, largely goes to YouTube, but since you're the cause of many of the views, you do get a small portion. Now, with the YouTube music scene, it's become a sort of really cloudy, shady thing because we don't know how the money gets split up amongst the artists, and then there's a lot of, as we read, a lot of litigation between the major artists that have the record labels and the YouTube artists, like I said, who largely just do it through YouTube. So, I mean, what do you think?
Yeah, it is a shady region. I think in terms of the YouTube artist, how you defined earlier, this is a good thing. It goes right to the person who posted the video, no problems. It's you know, just like as we described it. But what if, like in terms of Vivo hosts a bunch of websites. I think they are a record label.
Yeah, they're like a they're like the brainchild of like a conglomerate of record labels. It says, yeah, Universal Music Group has largely created Vivo and other things like that.
Right. So Vivo, I mean, they do artists, of every genre. So I mean, how do they distribute their revenue to the artists that they're playing? I mean, I don't know. That's where the shady region can come. And if people post other people's music and it accumulates a lot of views, how does that revenue get distributed back to the artist and not to the YouTube poster? It's a shady region, but for YouTube, it's really good. They get advertisements on all their videos, and
Hmm.
they make money that way.
Exactly. I can see it is a very shady region for me as well because, like I said, Vivo is like this big conglomerate and it does host a lot of like many artists over many different record labels. So it is kind of a weird thing, but in large amounts, it seems like it's kind of just like the big syndication of these major labels just wanting to, I guess, hold on to their content just so someone else doesn't post it and make money. They'd rather try to do it through this way.
Right.
And I mean, in my opinion, it doesn't seem like that good of a means of trying to control your content. But what do you think?
Yeah, it's tough to answer that question. I mean, I think in terms of viewing YouTube as a business, that's where you can get into that shady region. But if you do view it as a venue, then it's pretty clear what YouTube's trying to do. They're just giving revenue to the artists that they are, that are performing
Yeah.
on their set. Right?
Yeah. So now that we've talked about the major artists, let's talk about the independent artists. One of the ones I highlighted in my paper, as I'm sure you read, is Mac Miller,
Back then,
the artist, and the article written about him is 100 million views and rising. I mean, what does 100 million views represent? I mean, first in the not in the YouTube money sense, but just in like the sense of like getting 100 million viewers. What do you think that means?
yeah, all these websites are really converging. YouTube's intertwining with Facebook. It's intertwining with Twitter, all these great social media. So, I mean, 100 million views, that's getting posted, reposted. It's just broadening his audience, and that
Mhm.
means probably a lot more to him than, the little revenue you're getting from YouTube. So,
Yeah, same thing. I mean, 100 million views, that's a lot of people. That's more than you can cram into any one stadium at a
exactly.
time, even if you go on like a massive tour, which I mean, I doubt he can because he is a YouTube artist who just kind of sort of just started making his music and just started posting it on YouTube. Chris, as I stated before, it's a lot more views than like I said, in a stadium. But I mean, does the fact that the video stays up there for so long, and like I'm sure the views don't all come at once; they gradually grow. So do you think there's a benefit over having this big like traditional stadium thing over posting it onto a site and then people can just watch it whenever they like?
Yeah, I think it's better for the artist in this case. I mean, you can wait for a concert once every what? I mean, even if you're looking at the Rolling Stones, maybe like they have a reunion. I mean, they're still together, but they come to a venue every, once in a while. You wait for that, maybe you forget about them, you don't listen to it. When it's, this is on the computer, you can look at it whenever you want. I mean, this really puts the artist in high demand because the artist can listen to it whenever they want. Or sorry, the viewer can listen to the artist whenever they
Right,
want.
right. And like you said yourself, with these connections with social media, YouTube has become the thing where like people can link to a YouTube video through literally every social media that's out there. I mean, I know you don't have a Facebook, but I have a Facebook. We both have Twitters and things like, and like there's a litany of other social media.
Yeah.
And I mean, oftentimes the few times that I do check my Facebook, I will see a lot of people just going, "Oh, like this video. This is a great song." Blah 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 blah. Do you think that helps even more?
I do. I think when it's easy to share music with people, you get the artist name out more,
Right.
and yeah, it just really helps promote the artist. So definitely.
All right. Cool. So now that we've talked about the YouTube money and like there is actually a lot of it to go around because advertisers are paying a lot of money to have their videos, to have their advertisements seen, and like we've seen, 180 million people watching one video, you want to have your advertisement in there, so you're going to pay some money, and that's where the legal issues come in.
Yeah.
So, what do you think about these legal issues being raised by these independent artists who are getting all these views, like Mac Miller, and not really seeing as much of the advertisement revenue as the major labels?
Yeah. I mean, this is a difficult area as well because not only is this happening, but people aren't buying his album as much because they're listening to it on YouTube. Or you can do like a YouTube to MP3 converter thing and just steal
Exactly.
the music that way. I mean, they are getting money, but maybe not, the way they intended it to be.
Hmm.
But, times are changing. There's different, media venues, and I mean, they are adapting. They are getting revenue, but I mean, yeah, it's a shady area.
Yeah, like we said in the Martin Todd's article, A Level Playing Field, a lot of independent artists are trying to sort of like come together and try to negotiate with YouTube for a larger portion of the advertisement revenue that YouTube is getting because of their views. And I mean, it really does seem kind of shady to me because, a lot of these independent artists, they can't, go around and tour like the major label artists can, and they really they don't publish their own music, they don't have albums until much later on, as we'll talk later. But I mean, do you think they deserve more?
Do I think the artist deserves more?
Yeah, more of the cut from the YouTube revenue.
It's I do. In a short answer, I do. But I mean, it's a tough spot for YouTube too because I mean, this is a good segue to like remixes and people posting the videos that's not Vivo or their record label.
Right,
So like for instance, I have a YouTube channel and I like to post lyrics to songs that don't have it on YouTube. This revenue is not going to the artist. I'm just merely posting it so people can read the lyrics as they're listening to the song.
We should point out Chris isn't getting any revenue
Yeah,
from
I'm not
this.
getting any revenue because these are like artists that aren't that popular. But there are artists that are popular, and people who first post the lyrics to it, they get millions of views and they get the revenue. Sorry if that was confusing. But
Yeah. So, I mean, like you said, I mean, there are a lot of artists that aren't really that well heard of, and they post their music to maybe some other site like SoundCloud or
right.
I don't know I don't know any of the other ones, but people like you who do post these like lesser known artists and like throw it on YouTube, I definitely do think that does help in some way to like help propagate it. I mean, if you had a Facebook, you could probably link it to them, link it to the rest of your friends. But I mean, in terms of the YouTube artists, like one of my favorite ones is George Watsky, and one of his a lot of his songs on his like first, I guess you can call it album, were mostly remixes or like covers and things like that. So what do you think about those? Do they deserve as much of the advertisement revenue as some? Or how would you divide it up if it wasn't?
It almost seems like they deserve less because they are not losing sales on albums.
Right.
Um, but again, this is a gray area because you don't know how YouTube is dividing its revenues. But I will say that it is gaining popularity for all the artists, so it does have its benefits, but I mean, it's a gray area again.
I can see that. Oftentimes, I'll find a cover of a song that I actually like more than the original song.
Yeah.
So, and if the if the YouTube artist is well known enough, you can buy it on iTunes, things like that. But I mean, the big question and the big legal question here is, should the actual creators of that beat or that rhythm get any money, or is it just Skyping off of theirs?
Yeah. I don't know if I have a good answer for this, but that's a question that definitely needs to be looked into. I'm not sure how YouTube's dealing with it right now, but yeah, it seems like it's a form of piracy where the artist is getting part of their music stolen and another person's profiting off it. So yeah.
All right. And now that we've talked about all these things over and overall, Chris, do you think YouTube is still going to be a viable source for both big and small artists to post their material onto?
I think it'll be great for the small artists and problematic for the larger artists. But I mean, YouTube is changing. They're trying to integrate Google Plus into their things. I don't know how this is gonna like affect their business or anything like that. But it is putting another social media into it. It's gonna gain more popularity among people. Yeah, overall, it's good for promoting popularity of artists. For the bigger artists, it's not necessarily good for profits.
Really? Okay. And that's all we have time for. If you want to find any of the articles that Chris and I talked about, you can check the links down below. And yeah, that's about it. All right, cool.